Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let's get on to solving prelim questions for prelims 2020 for day 12th. So question number 1. With reference to Ramsar Convention, consider the following statements. Number 1. To become a member, a country must have at least 15% of its region as wetlands. Alright. Statement number 2. Both the natural and man-made wetlands can be classified as Ramsar wetland sites. Which of the statements given above are correct? 1 only, 2 only, both and none. Now herein, please try to understand these statements on your own because in the examination hall, no one would be standing beside us to make us understand these statements. And definitely in the explanation part, we'll be looking into individual statements comprehensively, but at least try solving these questions on your own. So let's see the answer now. Statement number 1 is incorrect and statement number 2 is correct. Yes, both the natural and man-made wetlands can be classified as the Ramsar wetland sites. There is no limitations as such, but statement number 1 is wrong because there are basically two criteria in order to become a member of the Ramsar Convention. What are these? Number 1, a country, it must designate at least one wetland as a Ramsar wetland basically, or as a list of wetland of international importance. If we are incorporating a wetland into Ramsar Convention, that by default it becomes a wetland of international importance, right? But the criteria is at least one and not 15% of the territory. Please memorize this. Second is, the government then has to come up with any planning and policy to conserve that very site and other sites as well. This is again obvious. It is not sufficient on the part of government to just declare one of the wetland as international importance and then do nothing. Government has to come up with some policy and programs. So these two are our basic criteria. That's it. And further, in the Ramsar, wetlands have been classified in 3 types. Number 1, marine or coastal wetlands. Broadly, these are coral reefs, shores and lagoons. And then there are inland wetlands. These are freshwater, springs, creeks, marshes, etc. And finally, they are human-made or artificial wetlands. Broadly, these are aquaculture ponds wherein we rear fishes. Then there are irrigated lands, and then there are canals, and one of the example of such an artificial wetland is right there in Punjab, Harike Lake. Very, very important. So we are done. In mains, as far as I can recall, in 2017 or 16 maybe, we were told to write at length about 2 of the wetlands. So question was very specifically about explaining the wetlands. Any 2 would have sufficed. So keep a tab on what is the basic feature of a wetland. So Harike is basically an artificial wetland. So it's all about picking points from here and there and using it somehow in any of the aspect of exam. So let's not deviate either way. We are done with question number 1. I really am assuming that this time we are going slow. So that's it. Question number 1 is done. Question number 2 is right here. This is, which of the following is are correct regarding the intensive subsistence type of agriculture? Alright, number 1, operations of cultivation from plowing to harvesting are generally mechanized. Second, it is largely found in densely populated regions of monsoon Asia. Select the correct answer from the code given below. So codes are either way very simple, 1 only, 2 only, both and none. So please try to understand these statements on your own and come up with the right answer. Anyways, let's see the answer now. So our keyword here is intensive subsistence type of agriculture. And this is why statement number 1 becomes wrong, because subsistence means you are plowing and you are harvesting and you are growing crop just for yourself or for your family. That is not to be sold in the market. We are not talking about commercial crops here. Alright, so how could it be mechanized? Because mechanization means we are to invest a lot of money. So statement number 1 is wrong. Intensive subsistence type of agriculture is not mechanized. Second is indeed correct. India is one of such country wherein we witness intensive subsistence type of agriculture, and herein we are having densely populated regions and we are also having monsoon sort of climate. So that makes statement number 2 correct. So point number B is our answer here. Let's see few more important points with regard to question number 2. In intensive subsistence agriculture, the farmer cultivates a small plot of land using simple tools and more labor to meet the needs of themselves. So need of themselves make it a subsistence agriculture, and using a small plot of land make it intensive one. मतलब उसी एक छोटे से plot को आप ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा cropping के ज़रिए इस्तेमाल कर रहे हो. You're not bringing in any new land. It would have been extensive one had you brought a new land into cultivation, but using a small plot of land, so that make it intensive. Intensive subsistence type of agriculture is largely found in densely populated regions of monsoon Asia. Alright. Use of machinery is limited. It's not altogether absent, but usage is limited, and most of the agricultural operations are done by manual labor. That's it. Now this point is important, that here yield per unit area is high. Suppose it's a 1 acre of land, you're gonna be getting good amount of output from that very area. But just because there are more people employed, so per labor productivity would go down. So yes, per labor productivity is low. In fact, this intensive subsistence agriculture is associated with disguised form of unemployment, wherein any additional employment of labor is not giving us any additional output. And yes, please cram this, memorize this. Yield per unit area is high, but per labor productivity is low. So we are done with second question as well. Let's look at next question. Consider the following statements. Number 1, India is the largest importer of vegetable oils in the world. Second, groundnut contributes the highest to the total oilseed production in the country. So here in statement number 1, we're talking about imports. In statement number 2, we're talking about domestic production. So read the statements carefully and try to come up with the right answer, and if possible, do mention your answers in the comment section. Alright, so let's see the answer now. Statement number 1 is indeed correct, that yes, India is the largest importer of vegetable oils in the world. But statement number 2 is not correct, because groundnut does not contribute to highest production. It's something else, but let's see all the explanation and the important points here. Number 1, we majorly import 9 form of oil seeds. Highest among them is import of soya bean, that is 30. No, statement number 2 we're talking about here, and it's about production. So largely we produce 9 major oil seeds, and that in totality comprises little more than 88% of total oilseed production, and among them highest is of soya bean, that is 39%, groundnut comprises of 26%, rapeseed and mustard comprises of 24%. बस इतना ही याद कर लेने से बहुत होगा. Highest is 39% soya bean. We do not need to memorize the percentage, but still question can be framed as if soybean comprises of over 15% of the production of oilseed in India, then that would be wrong, because it is less than 50%. थोड़ा ऐसा वाले ideas हमें लेने हैं, exact तो percentage नहीं याद रख सकते. So soybean 39%, groundnut 26%, rapeseed और mustard 24%. That's it. So that makes statement number 2 incorrect. Now, India is definitely heavily dependent on imports, because we are a country of over 125 crore people. So domestic production is not enough, and that's how majorly we are importing these oils. But let's see the chronology first. India is the largest importer of vegetable oils. That's it. Number 2 is at China, and USA is at number 3. So India 1, China 2, USA 3rd. And palm oil is imported to the extent of 60%. अगर 100 ऑयल हम यूनिट्स का 100 यूनिट्स ऑयल का इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं तो उसमें से 60 यूनिट तो पाम ऑयल ही है. एंड देन सोयाबीन ऑयल इज़ टू द ट्यून ऑफ 25%. 100 में से 25 यूनिट सोयाबीन ऑयल का एंड 12 यूनिट इज़ ऑफ सनफ्लावर ऑयल. हेयर ऑल्सो वी नीड टू मेमोराइज द chronology. And during the last decade, our edible oil imports has gone up to the tune of 174%. So अगर 2000 के around or 2020, so decade means 2010. We were importing 100 units of edible oil. So now we are importing almost 174. So growth is to the tune of this many percent. So we are done with question number 3 as well. Each and every point is important because question asked are really tricky. Let's see this question now. Consider the following statements. Number 1. If there is an equality of votes and no decision has been made, then the election commission decides the election by a lottery. Alright. Second is, there has been no instance in India where an election has been decided by the lottery. Now, select the correct answer here. It's number 1 only, 2 only, both, or none. So again, pause a bit and try to come up with the right answer. So let's see the answer now. Statement number 1 is incorrect. The moment there is equality of votes and the returning officer hasn't taken any decision, then it's on to High Court to decide the outcome through a lottery. That's it. And this is as per the section 102 of the Representation of Peoples Act. Very important. Second, if the candidate is to be declared a winner through lottery by a high court, and then statement 2 is incorrect because here it's been stated that there has been no instance in India where an election has been decided by the lottery, but then this is incorrect because there are instances in India where indeed a winner was decided based on a lottery system. And in fact, recently in Braham Mumbai Council election, in municipal election of Mumbai, there was this very scenario where nobody was having majority of votes and equality was there, so decision was taken through a lottery system. So this is it. So every point here is again important. 102 of section of Representation of People Act, and High Court is our keyword here and not the Election Commission. So we are done with the questions for day 12, and if you haven't gotten over any of the concepts, do let me know in the comment section. We'll go through that once again, and thank you so much for watching and goodbye.